Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto was adopted by a goddess. A blonde-haired boy wakes up in a world he has never seen before. With only a note from his new mother as his guide, he tries to start a new life in this new world and discover his true heritage. Little did he know, he will be stuck in between a feud that could mean the end of the world. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 20, Annabeth schools Cerberus. The demigod's jaws hung open. They watched as the dead walked up to the monster with no fear at all. The attendant on duty lines parted on either side of him. The easy death spirits walked right between his front paws and under his belly, which they could do without even crouching. As they looked higher up his body, they saw a huge. He's a Rottweiler. Percy managed. Naruto shook himself out of shock. What did you expect, a Chihuahua? Percy shook his head. I was expecting a black mastiff, but that's not the point. Why can we see him better? I think. Annabeth moistened her lips. I'm afraid it's because we're getting closer to being dead. Cerberus' head craned towards the demigods. He sniffed the air and growled. Meat. Naruto and Grover perked up, understanding what the three-headed dog said. It can smell the living, Percy said. But that's okay, right? Grover said, trembling next to Percy. Because we have a plan. Right, a plan, said Annabeth in the smallest voice her friends had ever heard from her. They moved towards the monster. The middle head snarled at them, then barked so loud that the demigods felt their eyeballs rattle. Damn boy, Naruto winced. You don't have to be that rude. What? Why? What did it say? Percy asked. I don't think there's a direct translation for that. It was Grover who answered. Percy took the big stick out of his backpack, which was just a bedpost he had broken off Krusty's Safari Deluxe floor model, and then he held it up. Hey, big fella, he called up. I bet they don't play with you much. Cerberus didn't look impressed. Instead, he just growled even louder. Good boy, Percy said weakly. He began to wave the stick in the air. The middle head followed its movements while the other two heads were trained on the demigod holding the stick. Fetch. Percy threw the stick into the gloom, a good solid throw. There was a loud kersplush in the river Styx. Cerberus glared at him, unimpressed. His eyes were baleful and cold. This time, Cerberus made a different kind of growl. It was deeper down his three throats. 10 seconds, demigod. Choose the god to pray to. After that, get in my belly. We're dead. Grover winced. Oh no, Percy is about to be dog chow. Naruto said. Wait. Annabeth said. She started rifling through her pack. 5 seconds. Grover said. Do we run now? No, Annabeth has something up her sleeve. Naruto said. Annabeth produced a red rubber ball the size of a grapefruit. It still had the label, Waterland, Denver, Co. She raised the ball and marched straight up to Cerberus. Percy and Grover hid their eyes, fearing what would happen, while Naruto stood his ground. She shouted, See the ball? You want the ball, Cerberus? Sit. Hearing this, Percy and Grover opened their eyes only to have their mouths hang open. Even the giant Rottweiler in front of them was as shocked as they were. For the only shinobi in the group, well, he was grinning at her actions. All three of his heads cocked sideways. 6 nostrils dilated. Sit. Annabeth called again. What happened next shocked Percy and Grover even more. Cerberus licked his 3 sets of lips, shifted on his haunches, and sat, immediately crushing a dozen spirits who'd been passing underneath him in the easy death line. The spirits made muffled hisses as they dissipated, like the air let out of tires. Good boy, Annabeth said, and then she threw Cerberus the ball. Cerberus caught it in his middle mouth. It was barely big enough for him to chew, and the other heads started snapping at the middle, trying to get the new toy. Drop it, Annabeth ordered. Cerberus's head stopped fighting and looked at her. The ball was wedged between two of his teeth like a tiny piece of gum. He made a loud, scary whimper, and then dropped the ball, now slimy and bitten nearly in half, at Annabeth's feet. Good boy. She picked up the ball, ignoring the slobber all over it. She turned to her friends. Go now. Easy death line, it's faster. But, Percy tried to protest. No time for that, Percy. Naruto dragged his friends towards the line. They inched slowly moved forward. The giant dog seemed to notice this and growled. You got this. Naruto encouraged Annabeth as they passed. She smiled, then nodded. Stay. Annabeth ordered the monster. If you want the ball, stay. Cerberus whimpered, but he stayed where he was. Because of the daughter of Athena's efforts, the three boys managed to get through scot-free. Good boy, she said again. She held up the big red ball again. Although, this time she wasn't sure if she should reward him with it. She threw the ball anyway. The monster's left mouth immediately snatched it up, only to be attacked by the middle head, while the right head moaned in protest. While Cerberus was busy with his new toy, Annabeth ran to her friends who were waiting at the metal detector. How did you know the ball would work, but not the stick? Percy asked. Honestly, Percy, he found the stick insulting. Grover said. But how was that different from the ball? Percy asked again, confused. From obedience school, Annabeth explained, with tears falling down her eyes. When I was little, at my dad's house, we had a Doberman. SHHH. It's okay. We all have our pasts. Naruto said, wiping her tears. Thanks. She managed a smile. Are we done with all the sugar? Grover said. Come on. The three boys ran through the easy death line, when Cerberus moaned pitifully from all three lines. This made Annabeth stop. She turned to look at the Rottweiler, who was now turned 180 degrees and looking at them. Cerberus panted expectantly, the tiny red ball in pieces in a puddle of drool at its feet. Good boy, Annabeth said, but her voice sounded melancholy and uncertain. The monster's heads turned sideways, as if worried about her. Naruto saw this and went back to her. He placed a hand on Annabeth's shoulder. You don't want to leave him alone, huh? Naruto said. Here. Naruto raised his hands into a hand sign. In a puff of smoke, another Naruto appeared beside the original. With a half-ram seal, the other Naruto transformed into a perfect copy of Annabeth. Annabeth's expression brightened up, and hugged Naruto. Thanks. Come on. Let's go. Grover and Percy pushed through the metal detector, followed closely by Naruto and Annabeth. The metal detector screamed and set off flashing red lights. Unauthorized possessions. Magic detected. Cerberus started to bark, but was still focused on his new playmate. They burst through the easy death gate, which started even more alarms blaring, and raced into the underworld. A few minutes later, they were hiding, out of breath, in the rotten trunk of an immense black tree as security ghouls scuttled past them, yelling for backup from the Furies. So, what have we learned today? Grover asked in jest. To wing it. Naruto tried. That three-headed dogs prefer red rubber balls over sticks. Percy tried as well. No, Grover shook his head at both answers. We've learned that Percy's plans really bite. But, Annabeth and I had the same idea. Percy protested. Well, it would work for other dogs, I guess. Naruto offered. Hey. I thought you were on my side. Percy said. As the three boys were joking around, Annabeth was smiling as the joyful barks of Cerberus playing with his new friend. Fields of asphodel. It's like a giant football field. Percy commented. More like a concert. Annabeth corrected him. Yeah, but someone died backstage or something. Naruto added. Those were the ways our group of demigods described this place. The black grass they were walking on had been trampled by eons of dead feet. A warm, moist wind blew like the breath of a swamp. Black trees, Grover said, where poplars grew in clumps here and there. The demigods were now walking among the crowds of spirits trying to blend in, while keeping an eye out for security ghouls looking for them. All the spirits they passed by all look angry or confused. Some tried to talk to them, the voice that came out was chattering, something like bats twittering. When they realize you can't understand them, they frown and walk away. They concluded that ghosts weren't scary at all, they were just sad. Naruto couldn't help but wonder if the dead of the elemental nations came to this same place. It was unlikely, but he still held hope that he would see his parents somewhere here. He kept his eyes open just in case. They crept along, following the line of new arrivals that snaked from the main gates toward a black-tented pavilion with a banner that read, "Judgments for Elysium and Eternal Damnation. Welcome, newly deceased." Out the back of the tent came two much smaller lines. The left line, which was flanked by security ghouls, led to the fields of punishment. It glowed and smoked in the distance. The fields were a vast, cracked wasteland with rivers of lava and minefields and miles of barbed wire separating the different torture areas. Even from afar, you could see the different forms of torture the spirits were forced to endure for eternity. The right line was by far much better. This one led towards a small valley surrounded by walls, a gated community. This seemed, the only happy place in the underworld. Beyond the security gate were neighborhoods of beautiful houses from every time period in history, Roman villas, and medieval castles and Victorian mansions. Silver and gold flowers bloomed on the lawns. The grass rippled in rainbow colors. From where the demigods were standing, they could hear laughter and smell barbecue cooking. It was Elysium. In the middle of that valley was a glittering blue lake, with 3 small islands like a vacation resort in the Bahamas. The Isles of the Blessed, for people who had chosen to be reborn 3 times, and 3 times achieved Elysium. That's what it's all about, Annabeth said. That's the place for heroes. Naruto nodded. That's what we're all gunning for. You can say that again. Percy said. Grover just remained silent. After that, the demigods left the Judgment Pavilion and moved deeper into the fields of asphodel. It got darker. The colors faded from their clothes. The crowds of chattering spirits began to thin. As Naruto was looking at more of the spirits, one in particular caught his attention. This spirit was a girl who looked like she was of African American descent. She had curly brown hair hidden under her cloak. Unlike the other spirits, this one didn't look angry or confused, just sad. The two looked at each other in the eye, but the girl didn't pay Naruto any attention. Naruto, though, got curious and turned back for another look. After a few miles of walking, the familiar screech could be heard in the distance. Looming on the horizon was a palace of glittering black obsidian. Above the parapets swirled 3 dark bat-like creatures, the Furies, who seemed to be waiting for them. I guess it's too late to turn back now, huh? Grover said. We'll be okay. Percy tried to say with confidence. Maybe we should search some of the other places first, Grover suggested. Like, Elysium, for instance. I doubt we will find the lightning bolt in Elysium, Grover. Naruto said. I don't think it's in the palace either. I'm sure though that we would get answers there. Yeah, goat boy. Annabeth said, grabbing his arm. We're not going back after coming this far. Grover yelped. His sneakers sprouted wings and his legs shot forward, pulling him away from Annabeth. He landed flat on his back in the grass. Grover, Annabeth chided. Stop messing around. But I didn't dash. He yelped again. His shoes were flapping like crazy now. They levitated off the ground and started dragging him away from his friends. Maya. He yelled, but the magic word seemed to have no effect. Maya, already. 911. Help. Percy got over being stunned and was about to act, but was too late. Naruto with his amazing reflexes was able to jump and grab onto Grover, but was dragged like a bobsled. Percy and Annabeth just ran after them. Annabeth shouted, untie the shoes. Grover tried to sit up, but he couldn't get close to the laces. The two were on his tail trying to keep up with Naruto and Grover. They all thought Grover would fly straight into Hades' palace, but he did the unthinkable. He veered for a sharp right turn and dragged both boys in the opposite direction. The slope got steeper. Grover picked up speed, pulling Naruto with him. Annabeth and Percy had to sprint to keep up. The cavern walls narrowed on either side. There was no more black grass or trees now, just rock underfoot, and the dim light of the stalactites above. "Grover!" Percy yelled, my voice echoing. "Hold on to something." "What?" he yelled back. "I can't hold on anymore." Oof, Naruto's face got scratched by the small rocks which, adding to his already tired arms, made him release his grip. Ow! Grover was trying to grab at gravel, but there was nothing big enough to slow him down. The tunnel got darker and colder. The hairs on the demigod's arms bristled. It made them think of dark and evil thoughts. The tunnel widened into a huge dark cavern, and in the middle was a chasm the size of a city block. The demigods saw this and stopped dead in their tracks. "That's," Percy stuttered. "Yeah, the place in your dreams," Annabeth replied. Grover's yelling broke the two out of his stupor. He was already in the chasm. The two ran towards him. Luckily, his hooves saved him. He managed to hug a huge rock and use it as an anchor. The shoes kept tugging themselves free from his hooves and flew into the chasm. The problem is Grover was already slipping, and his friends were too far to reach him. Before they even got to him, the satyr's arms gave in and fell into the chasm. "No!" the two demigods shouted. "Help!" Grover shouted to his friends. From out of nowhere, Naruto came running in and jumped into the chase with a bunch of poofs on his trail. The original Naruto was able to grab onto Grover's ankles with a bunch of clones grabbing one another's ankles. "I got you!" Naruto said. "Way to go, Naruto!" Percy and Annabeth shouted from up top. "Get me up! Get me up!" Grover panicked. "Guys!" Naruto shouted to his clones. "Yes, sir!" All clones shouted and shot them, slingshot style, back up to their friends. Everyone collapsed, exhausted, on the obsidian gravel. Their limbs felt like lead. Percy didn't notice this, but his backpack felt heavier all of a sudden. Grover and Naruto were scratched up pretty bad from the ride the winged shoes gave them. Grover's eyes had gone slit-pupiled due to his fear. "I don't know how." The satyr panted. "I didn't." Wait, Percy could hear a deep whisper in the darkness. "Listen." Another few seconds, and Annabeth said, "Percy, this place dash." "What are you?" Naruto whispered. "Sheesh." I stood. The sound was getting louder, a muttering, evil voice from far, far below. It was coming from the pit. Grover sat up. What's that noise? Annabeth heard it too, now. I could see it in her eyes. "This is the entrance to Tartarus," Naruto agreed. This made the quest a whole lot more complicated. Percy uncapped Anaklusmos. The bronze sword expanded, gleaming in the darkness, and the evil voice seemed to falter, just for a moment, before resuming its chant. Percy could almost make out words now, ancient words, older even than Greek. As if it was magic, Percy said. "We have to get out of here," Annabeth said. Naruto helped Grover up, and slung his arm over his shoulder to help him walk. "Come on, Grover," he said. Percy was lagging behind the group. It seemed like his backpack weighed a ton. That all changed when the voice behind them got louder and angrier. That made the group break into a run to get out of the hall faster. Naruto even carried the satyr on his shoulders to move faster. Just then, a cold wind pulled at their backs as if the pit behind them was inhaling. For a terrifying moment, the demigods were losing their footing on the gravel. Fortunately, due to Naruto's quick thinking, two clones scooped up Percy and Annabeth, and the three Narutos sprinted out of the hall with chakra-boosted steps. When they finally reached the top of the tunnel where the cavern widened out to the fields of asphodel, the wind died, and a wail of outrage echoed from the tunnel they came from. Apparently, something or someone wasn't happy that they got away. That was close. Naruto panted as he lay collapsed on the ground with his friends. "What was that?" Grover asked. "One of Hades' pets." "I doubt that," the older blonde answered. "You don't mean?" Annabeth said. The very idea of who was in the pit terrified the group. Even Naruto, who had encountered terrifying shinobi back in the elemental nations, was scared to bits. This was definitely on a whole other level than anything he faced before. They decided not to talk about it anymore, especially, not now that they are one room across the pit of Tartarus. Hades' palace seemingly was the better place to be in right now, unless you wanted to walk around the fields of Asphodel for eternity. Percy capped his sword, put the pen away. Let's keep going, he told his friend, and then turned to Grover to ask. Can you walk? The satyr tried to swallow some saliva, though his mouth was dry. Yeah, sure. I never liked those shoes, anyway. Well then, let's go, Naruto said, getting nods from his friends. Hades' palace. The Furies circled the parapets, high in the gloom. The outer walls of the fortress glittered black, and the 2-story tall bronze gates stood wide open. Engraved on the gates were scenes of death. Some were from modern times: an atomic bomb exploding over a city, a trench filled with gas mask-wearing soldiers, a line of African famine victims waiting with empty bowls, but all of them looked as if they'd been etched into the bronze thousands of years ago. I wonder if these already happened, Naruto wondered aloud. Maybe they're prophecies, Percy added. Who knows? Grover said. They headed inside the courtyard. It contained the strangest garden the demigods had ever seen. Multicolored mushrooms, poisonous shrubs, and weird luminous plants grew without sunlight. Precious jewels made up for the lack of flowers, piles of rubies as big as my fist, clumps of raw diamonds. Standing here and there like frozen party guests were Medusa's garden statues, petrified children, satyrs, and centaurs, all smiling grotesquely. In the center of the garden was an orchard of pomegranate trees, their orange blooms neon bright in the dark. The Garden of Persephone, Annabeth said. Keep walking. So, she's a fan of Medusa's works, Naruto said. Too bad we took her out. She'll reform eventually, Annabeth said. Grover. No. Percy pulled Grover away. The satyr was about to eat some of the pomegranates from the tree. The tart smell from the fruit was overwhelming him. But I'm hungry, the satyr complained. You can't, Grover, Naruto explained. Unless you want to live here. Yeah, Grover, Percy said. Come on. The group walked up the steps of the palace, between black columns, through a black marble portico, and into the Hades residence. The entry hall had a polished bronze floor, which seemed to boil in the reflected torchlight. There was no ceiling, just the cavern roof, far above. Every side doorway was guarded by a skeleton in military gear. Some wore Greek armor, some British redcoat uniforms, some camouflage with tattered American flags on the shoulders. They carried spears or muskets or M16s. None of the skeletons bothered them, but the hollow eye sockets followed them as they walked down the hall, toward the big set of doors at the opposite end. 2 U.S. Marine skeletons guarded the doors. They grinned down at them, rocket-propelled grenade launchers held across their chests. You know, I bet Hades doesn't have trouble with door-to-door salesmen, Grover joked. Or solicitors, Naruto added. Or preachers, Percy added. Percy's backpack weighed a ton now, but he remained quiet and decided to ignore it. He was psyching himself up to face the god of the underworld. You ready, Percy? Naruto asked. Will you take no for an answer? Percy said, earning a round of half-hearted laughter from his friends. Well, guys, I said. I suppose we should, knock. A hot wind blew down the corridor, and the doors swung open. The guards stepped aside. I guess that means entrez vous, Annabeth said. The demigods entered the giant hall. At the end of the hall were 2 big thrones, one of which was empty. The empty throne was shaped like a black flower, gilded with gold, Persephone's throne. The other was made up of fused human bones. Sitting on it was Hades, himself. He was at least 10 feet tall, for one thing, and dressed in black silk robes and a crown of braided gold. His skin was albino white, his hair shoulder length and jet black. He wasn't bulked up like Ares, but he radiated power. He lounged on his throne of fused human bones, looking lithe, graceful, and dangerous as a panther. You are brave to come here, son of Poseidon, he said in an oily voice. After what you have done to me, very brave indeed. Or perhaps you are simply very foolish. Probably, more foolish. It's Percy we're talking about. Naruto thought. He would have said it aloud, but it wasn't the time to joke. Numbness crept up to Percy's legs, but he fought the feeling and said, "Lord and Uncle, I come with 2 requests." Hades raised an eyebrow. He sat forward in his throne. Shadowy faces appeared in the folds of his black robes, faces of torment, as if the garment were stitched of trapped souls from the fields of punishment, trying to get out. "I wonder how bad you should be to end up in Hades' underwear." The ad part of Percy and Naruto thought. "Only 2 requests," Hades said. "Arrogant child. As if you have not already taken enough. Speak, then. It amuses me not to strike you dead yet." Percy didn't know what to say. Annabeth cleared her throat. She prodded her finger on the son of Poseidon's back. "Lord Hades," Percy said. "Look, sir, there can't be a war among the gods. It would be bad. Really bad," Grover added helpfully. "Return Zeus's master bolt to me," Percy added / "Please, sir. Let me carry it to Olympus." Hades' eyes grew dangerously bright. "You dare keep up this pretense, after what you have done?" Percy glanced back to his friends. The look of bewilderment was evident on their faces. They too were hearing this for the first time. Uncle," Percy said. "You keep saying, after what you've done. What exactly have I done?" There was a strong tremor that could have been felt all the way up in Los Angeles. Debris fell from the cavern ceiling. Doors burst open all along the walls, and skeletal warriors marched in, hundreds of them, from every time period and nation in Western civilization. They lined the perimeter of the room, blocking the exits. Chapter 21, Escaping the Underworld. A huge tremor shook the earth, destroying buildings everywhere and causing fires to erupt from the damage. Many people scrambled from their day-to-day lives after they felt the wrath of the god of the underworld. Deep down below the earth, there was a confrontation between the said god and 3 demigods with their satyr protector. "Do you think I want war, godling?" the Lord of the Dead bellowed. "Well, the soldiers behind us tell a different story," the blonde shinobi said, earning a hit on the shoulder from Annabeth. "Stay out of this, son of Artemis," Hades said. "This is no time for jokes. The name's Naruto, by the way." Naruto introduced himself. "Yes, I have heard of you and your mother's fiasco," Hades said. "Frankly, I would like to have your soul once you die, but I'm afraid your soul goes back to the Shinigami of your world. I don't suppose my parents—" Hades shook his head. "They're not here." "Ahem." Annabeth interjected. "The lightning bolt." "Oh yeah." Percy remembered. "A war between the gods would expand your kingdom, right? A typical thing for my brothers to say. Perhaps you didn't see the sprawl of souls on your way here? Do you think I need more subjects?" Was all the 4 could say. "Do you have any idea how much my kingdom has swollen in the past century? How many subdivisions I had to open?" The 4 couldn't speak. "More security ghouls," Hades moaned. "Traffic problems at the Judgment Pavilion. Double overtime for the staff. I used to be a rich god. I control all the precious metals under the earth. But my expenses. Not to mention Karen wants a pay raise," Naruto said. "Don't even get me started on him," he yelled at the blonde. "He's been begging me for that ever since he discovered Italian suits. These problems everywhere, I have to handle myself. The commute time myself is enough to drive me insane. And the dead don't stop coming. No demigod, I did not ask for this war." "But you—" Percy was about to say, but Naruto stopped him. The son of Poseidon looked at him and the blonde shook his head. Hades rose from his throne. From the perspective of the demigods, he was as tall as a football goal post. "You and your father may fool Zeus, boy, but you won't fool me. I see your plan." "What plan?" Percy asked. "You were the thief on the winter solstice," Hades accused. "Your father thought he could keep you as his little secret. He directed you into the throne room on Olympus, took the master bolt and my helm. Had I not sent my fury to discover you at Yancy Academy, Poseidon might have succeeded in hiding his scheme to start a war. But now you have been forced into the open. You will be exposed as Poseidon's thief, and I will have my helm back. Wait a minute, Lord Hades. Annabeth said. Your helm is missing too. Do not play innocent with me, girl. You, the satyr and that boy have been helping this hero come here to threaten me in Poseidon's name, no doubt to bring me an ultimatum. Does Poseidon think I can be blackmailed into supporting him? Wait just a darn minute. Naruto said, his eyes flickering from blue to red. Percy hasn't even been to Olympus. Why are you blaming it on him? Silence. Hades yelled at the blonde. I am not afraid of your power, boy. You are just a weapon brought into this world by your mother, no doubt to aid her father in the war. Those Olympians have the gall to send someone to threaten me here in abode when no one would offer me the slightest justice, the slightest help. It was bad enough I had to keep the word of my greatest weapon from leaking out. So, I searched for you myself, and when it was clear you were coming to my domain to deliver your little threat, I did not try to stop you. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover recoiled at Hades' mention of Naruto's power. Naruto, Annabeth tried to ask. I'm sorry Annabeth, Percy, Grover. I have been dodging this topic for a long time now, but this isn't the time for that. I promise I will tell you when I'm ready. Naruto apologized. The blonde turned to the god of the dead. Oh please, Lord Hades. What do you call the Minotaur, Echidna, and the Chimera? Don't talk to me in that tone, boy. You are lucky that I still need my helm from you. If not, I would have vaporized you on the spot. Hades snarled. Return my helm now, or I will stop death. That is my counter-proposal. Or better yet, I will open the earth and have the dead pour back out into the surface world. And you Percy Jackson, your skeleton will lead the armies of the dead out. The skeletal soldiers stepped forward cocking their guns and brandishing their swords and shields. It was Percy's turn to get mad this time. You're as bad as Zeus. You think I stole from you even I haven't been to Olympus yet. Then, you send your furies and monster after me. Monsters. To answer your question, Naruto Uzumaki, I had nothing to do with them. I didn't want to give a swift death. I wanted you brought before me alive so I could subject you to every form of torture available in the fields of punishment. Why do you think I let you into my kingdom so easily? Easily? There were security ghouls looking for us. Hades ignored him. Return my helm. Now. I don't have your helm. I came here to get the Master Bolt from you. Or that was the plan at least. Which is already in your possession. Hades shouted. You came here with it, fool, thinking you could threaten me. But I didn't. Open your pack, then. A horrible feeling struck Percy. The weight on my backpack. On our way here. It can't be. Percy, what are you talking about? Grover said. Percy slung off his backpack and unzipped it. Inside it was the 2-foot-long metallic cylinder, spiked on both ends, humming with energy. Percy, Annabeth said. How? You mean, you already felt this happening on the way here? Naruto asked. I don't know. I don't understand it either. I didn't think it was important at that time. I thought you guys were playing pranks. Percy explained. Well, at least he tried to. We weren't, Percy. You should have said something. Naruto scolded. All you heroes are the same. Hades said. Your pride makes you foolish, thinking you could bring such a weapon before me. I did not ask for Zeus's Master Bolt, but since it is here, you will yield it to me. I am sure it will make an excellent bargaining tool. And now, my helm. Where is it? Lord Hades, wait, Percy said. This is all a mistake. A mistake. Hades roared. The skeleton warriors behind them began to take aim. From somewhere up above, there was a familiar fluttering of leathery wings. The Furies swooped down to perch on top of their master's throne. One of them, the one Naruto and Percy recognized as Mrs. Dodds, grinned eagerly and flicked her whip. Hades shook his head. There is no mistake, Percy Jackson. I know why you come here bearing the weapon of Zeus. Hades flicked his wrist, and loosened a ball of golden fire from his palm. The flames exploded, revealing the Sally Jackson frozen at the moment the Minotaur began to squeeze her to death. "Mom! Aunt Sally!" Naruto and Percy said in unison. Memories of the battle they had with Pasiphae's son resurfaced on their minds. Annabeth and Grover each placed a hand on each of their shoulders respectively. "Yes," Hades said with satisfaction. "I took her. I knew that you would come to bargain with me eventually. Return my weapon, and perhaps I will let her go. Displease me, and she will stay here forever." Percy placed his hands in his pockets and held the pearls in his palms. "These could save my mom," he thought. "Ah, the pearls," Hades said. "Yes, my brother and his little tricks. Bring them forth." Percy brought out the pearls and looked at them in his hand. "Only 4. Hades chastised. "You do realize that each pearl only protects a single person. Try to take your mother then, demigod. Which of your friends will you sacrifice for her? Or give me the backpack and accept my terms?" Percy looked at his friends, their faces grim. "We were tricked," Percy said. "Set up by someone." "Yes, but why?" Annabeth asked. "Unless," the voice in the pit. Naruto placed a hand on Annabeth's shoulder. "No, not here. Not when we are so close to the pit." "Perce, the backpack." Grover brought something up. "It was given by Ares," the 4 said together. "But when?" Percy asked. "Probably when he gave you the backpack," Naruto suggested. "Works like our pens somehow, but when we are close to the pit." "Are you demigods, done?" Hades asked. "Let the boy decide." "Percy, you can't give him the bolt," Grover said. "I know that," Percy answered. "Use the last pearl on you, Mom," Grover suggested. "Leave me here." Percy was deep in thought. All he did was shake his head. "I'm a satyr," Grover argued. "He can torture me all he wants till I die, but he won't have me forever. I'll reincarnate as a flower or something." "No," Annabeth argued back. "You 3 go. Grover, you have to get out of here safely, and protect Percy so you could get your searcher's license. Get out of here so you could live your dream." "No way. I would still have failed if you were left down here," Grover said. "I'm staying." "Think again, goat boy," Annabeth said. "Ow!" the 2 exclaimed. Naruto had hit them in the head. "What did you do that for? You do realize that I was the one who forced myself into this quest despite Chiron's warnings. And besides, I promised the old centaur I would keep an eye on you. He would kill me if any one of you were to die here." Naruto explained his side. "No." The 2 shot down the older blonde's idea, causing him to sigh. The arguing continued. This time the blonde didn't even try to jump in with them. "You shall fail to save what matters most in the end," Percy murmured. Naruto smiled. He had picked up the same idea as Percy. "Guys! Stop!" Percy shouted to get the attention of the 2 who were arguing. "I know what to do." Percy turned to his mother. "I'm sorry. I'll find another way." "What?" Annabeth and Grover said. Even Hades didn't understand what was happening. The smug look on his face disappeared instantly. Godling. All he could do was watch as the son of Poseidon handed each of his friends a pearl. When he was done, Percy turned to Hades. "I'll find your helm, uncle. I'll return it. And don't forget about Charon's pay raise." "Do not defy," Hades yelled. "Oh, and it wouldn't hurt to play with Cerberus once in a while," Annabeth chimered in. "Percy Jackson, you will not." "Guys now!" Percy shouted. Each of them smashed a pearl at their feet. Nothing happened. "Destroy them!" Hades shouted with full rage. The skeleton warriors charged. The ones with guns clicked their weapons at full automatic. The Furies threw their flaming whips at them. Naruto began to build power, while the 3 closed their eyes to brace themselves. Just then, green mist covered the demigods, protecting them from the attacks, and a milky white sphere encased them all. The sphere floated up through the walls of the caverns. The demigod closed their eyes to brace themselves as they were going to hit the wall. Hades yelled in rage and threw curses as he watched the demigods escaping. Another earthquake shook his domain. Los Angeles was not having a peaceful night. Follow them to the surface world. Hades ordered the Furies. Santa Monica Bay. The bubbles they were in continued to go up higher even after they hit the underworld ceiling. When the demigods opened their eyes, the bubbles broke through surface of the bay. They even knocked a surfer off his board. Percy grabbed Grover to drag him over to a life buoy. Naruto did the same to Annabeth. A curious great white shark was circling around them. "Beat it," Percy said, causing the shark to turn and race away. The surfer dude raced away screaming about bad mushrooms or something. "I'm so going to kill Ares," Percy said. "But he's a god, Percy," Annabeth said. "Don't worry. I'll have his back on this," Naruto said. "Guys, don't tell me it's..." Grover said. "Yes, it's the 21st already," Percy said. Naruto looked over to the city. Los Angeles was on fire, plumes of smoke were rising from neighborhoods all over the city. Apparently, Hades' outburst a while back affected the mortal world. "We have to get to Olympus now," Annabeth said. "It's the solstice. We have to return the lightning bolt." The sound of motor cut off their conversation. A Coast Guard boat was approaching them to pick them up, but they were too busy to keep them for long or to wonder why 4 kids were in street clothes got to the middle of the bay. Their radio was jammed with distress calls. The kids from the bay were the least of their worries. The demigods were dropped off at Santa Monica Pier with towels wrapped around them and water bottles the red "I'm a Junior Coast Guard" plastered around it. After drying off for a bit, they stumbled on the beach, watching the city burn against a beautiful sunrise. It was so refreshing to see this, especially after coming from the underworld and all. "I can't believe our little theory was right," Annabeth said. "I was hoping we were when we made it to the underworld, but..." "The prophecy came true," Percy said. "We were all thinking that Hades was the culprit," Percy said. "I think you mean hoping," Naruto corrected. "I can't help but agree," Grover commented. "But who would be so sneaky?" A big familiar man in a black leather duster cut him off. "Hey kids, you were supposed to be dead." "You tricked me," Percy yelled. "You stole the helm and the master bolt." Ares gave out a wide grin. "Well now, I didn't steal them personally. As you know, we gods can't steal each other's symbol of power. It's a big no-no, but you're not the only heroes who can run errands." "Who did you use?" Annabeth gritted her teeth. "Was it Clarice? Or maybe another one of you children?" "Doesn't matter." Ares shrugged. "Point is, kids, you're impeding the war effort. See, you were supposed to die in the underworld. Then old Seaweed will be mad at Hades for killing you. Corpse Breath will have Zeus Master Bolt, so Zeus will be mad at him. And Hades will be looking for this." He pulled out a ski cap, the kind worn by bank robbers, and placed it on the handlebars of his bike. Immediately, the cap transformed into a bronze war helmet. "The Helm of Darkness." Grover gasped. "Exactly," Ares said. "Now where was I? Oh yeah, Hades will be mad at both Zeus and Poseidon because he doesn't know who took this. Pretty soon, there'll be a 3-way slugfest." "But they're your family," Annabeth protested. "That's the best kind of war." Ares shrugged. "Always the bloodiest. There's nothing like watching your relatives fight. Besides, it would knock those 3 down a peg." "You gave us the backpack in Denver," Percy said. "It was in there the whole time." "Well, yes and no," Ares said. "It's too complicated for your little mortal brain to follow. Basically, the backpack is the Master Bolt's sheath, just morphed a little. The bolt is connected to it, kinda like that sword you got. It always returns to your pocket, right?" Percy didn't react. "Anyway, I tinkered with the magic a little, so the bolt would only return to its sheath once you punks are in the underworld. The closer you get to Hades, bingo, you got mail. If you died along the way, no loss." I still had the weapon. The bolt was already in the bag when we were getting sucked in the pit, right Percy? Naruto asked the son of Poseidon. Percy nodded. What if we got sucked in that pit? Then, you would have lost the weapon. That's, Ares twitched. Yeah, you could have also kept the weapon to yourself. Annabeth added. Why send it to Hades? Ares said nothing for a few seconds. It was like he was in a trance, waiting for instructions from deep inside his head. Fire power, why didn't I? He mumbled. It's like he's in some kind of genjutsu. Naruto commented. The others gulped. This time, Ares' face cleared. If you guys were sucked in that pit, Zeus still didn't have the weapon, there'll still be a war. And sending it to Hades? Keeping the bolt for myself was just trouble. Besides, it was better to have you punks caught red-handed holding the bolt. Heh, Naruto smirked. You didn't plan for us to get sucked in the pit, did you? Of course I planned it. Ares roared, smoke drifting from his sunglasses as if they were catching fire. I don't think so. Percy shook his head. Someone else was sent to steal the bolt and the helm. Then Zeus sent you along with the others to look for his weapon. You caught the thief, but you didn't turn him over to Zeus. Something convinced you to let him go. You kept the weapons until someone else could make the delivery. I am the god of war. I take orders from no one. I don't have dreams. Ares got angrier. Naruto smirked even wider. We didn't say anything about dreams. Ares' mouth hung wide open. He cleared his throat to regain his composure and smirked himself. Let's get back to the problem at hand, punks. Old Seaweed's kid is still alive. I can't have you return the bolt to Olympus. You might just get those idiots up there to listen to you. So, naturally, I have to kill you myself. Nothing personal. Ares said. Then again, maybe this is personal. Especially for you. He pointed to Naruto. Me? The blonde asked. Yes, you. Ares answered. Anything to piss off old Artie. The god of war snapped his fingers. Just then, the sand beneath the demigod's feet exploded. A huge boar uglier than one hung over cabin 7's door. Don't tell Clarice I said that. Fortunately, the blonde shinobi was able to create a clone and pull his friends out of the way. A few feet away, the demigods and the two Narutos stood eyeing the boar. The said boar pawed the sand beneath its hooves, ready to charge. Hiding behind your overgrown pork chop, Ares. Naruto taunted. Yeah. Percy agreed. If you want to kill me, fight me yourself. It would be a waste of energy. The god of war shrugged. You're not at my level. Ares snapped his fingers and the boar charged. Percy and Naruto stepped forward to the surf. No guys. Run. Annabeth warned the two. As the boar rushed, the two, Percy sidestepped the boar and uncapped his pen. Naruto, on the other hand, threw his pen in the air and backflipped to avoid the tusks and kicked pen at its butt, and it flew toward the god of war. The pen he kicked flew towards the god of war, while it changed into his three-pronged kunai. He easily caught the weapon in his hand. You have to do better than. He stopped what he was saying when he felt itcher drip from the side of his face. How? Right behind him, the other three-pronged kunai dug itself in the sand. Why you? Ares roared. At the same time as the previous events. Percy, with his pen now uncapped and riptide in his hands, slashed upward, severing the boar's right tusk in the process. This disoriented the huge animal. At the same moment, Naruto, who was in the air, landed on the animal, then brought out a kunai, and drove it to the back of the animal. The boar squealed in pain, but not for long, as the son of Poseidon's sword sliced through its tusk. In the background, the god of war roared in anger. I will turn you into a... Naruto didn't let him finish. A tapeworm? He asked. A mutt? Taking the easy way out, are we? Flames were dancing on his shades. You're definitely dead meat. Are we talking or are we fighting? Naruto taunted. Or maybe you're going to hide behind another pig. Naruto, Percy, don't do it. He's a god. Annabeth shouted. God? He's a coward. Do you have my back, Naruto? Percy asked. All the way. Naruto said. Let's go. Wait. How about some good luck? Annabeth said when an explosion permeated the air from where Ares was. You go, Percy. Naruto offered. I'll hold him off. Will you be okay? Percy asked. Just don't take too long. Naruto said. Naruto went on to take on Ares and Percy went to Annabeth to receive their charms. What do you have in mind? Percy asked as the sound of steel clashing sounded behind them. Annabeth took off her necklace containing her 5 years' worth of beads and her father's college ring and tied it Percy's neck. Reconciliation, she said. Athena and Poseidon together. I feel bad, though, I don't have anything for Naruto. Oh, here. Grover took out a flattened tin can. It's my lucky tin can. Give this to Naruto, later. We satyrs stand behind you. Percy's face began to feel warm. Gee. Thanks, guys. Another explosion came from Naruto's battle with Ares. Naruto panted as stood his ground in front of Ares, the fatigue from the battle beginning to show. Ares cackled a sort of a crazy laugh. Is that all you got, punk? I've been fighting for all of eternity. My strength is unlimited and I can't die. What have you got? Naruto was about to answer when Percy shouted, You okay? He asked as he ran to Naruto's side. I've been through worse. Naruto said in between pants. Here, take this. Percy handed Grover's can. A good luck charm from our satyr friend. Naruto smiled as he placed the can in his pouch. Hey Ares, you know what we got? Naruto said. We got our friends with us. Yes, yes. They're going to die after you cocky punks. Ares said as he cleaved downward with a two-handed great sword. Percy was catapulted into the air with the aid of the water around him, while Naruto sidestepped the blade, slid under the god of war, and delivered a kick to Ares' stomach knocking him to the air. 4 clones appeared in the air, and together was about to stab the god of war while in the air. Unfortunately, Ares was able to twist in the air and slash through the 4 clones. Percy was able to block the strike, but he was knocked back down to the ground. Ares landed on the ground with flair. He grinned. Not bad, punks. He slashed again, forcing the duo to jump back to dry land. Percy tried to get back into the water, but Ares knew what he wanted so he pressed harder for them to get as far from the water as possible. Naruto and Percy defended themselves as they exchanged swipes and slashes with their swords, and kunai for the case of Naruto, and tried their best to get back to the water. The two tried to get in closer to Ares since the both of them had the shorter blades. Percy went in for a thrust, but Ares anticipated that. He knocked Riptide out of his hands and kicked him in the chest. He went airborne for about 20, or maybe 30 feet knocking Naruto back who was charging right behind Percy. Percy. Naruto. Cops. Annabeth warned. Chapter 22, Tag Battle. Drip drip drip. Ugh. A blonde-haired boy groaned. What happened? Drip drip drip. On fuck. The blonde rose with a start remembering his battle. Ares. He looked around. He was in a dark room filled with pipes and dripping water. In one corner of the room was a hallway. Not this again. Naruto complained. The blonde stood up and stretched. He followed the corridor and found himself into a huge room with a huge golden gate. So, you're back. A voice said from inside the gate. I can sense you are up against one of those troublesome gods. So you noticed. Naruto said. Can we speed this up? I gotta get back to the fight. You're here for more power. The voice said again. Pretty much, yeah. The blonde replied. You owe me rent after all. The voice chuckled in his cage. Fine then. Indulge in my power. Red chakra circled around him then covered him completely. Santa Monica Beach. Naruto. Percy. Cops. Annabeth warned. Ugh. Percy stirred and managed to get on his feet. He was seeing double now, but in the corner of his eyes, he could see the red lights flashing along the shoreline. Beside him, Naruto stood up radiating with a newfound power. His eyes were blazing red. Grover gasped and went pale. "What's wrong, Grover?" Annabeth asked. I can sense Naruto's killing intent," Grover said. Annabeth looked at Naruto. She could see a faint outline of red energy clinging to Naruto. Meanwhile, sirens wailed as a couple of cop cars came rushing to the scene. "Their officer!" a bystander yelled to the officers. "See!" a cop with a gruff voice said, "Looks like that kid on TV." "What the hell? That guy's armed." The cop from the other car said. "Call for backup." Ares laughed out loud. "Is that all you got, punks? Where's all that big talk just now?" The demigods gritted their teeth. Naruto felt the red chakra coursing through his chakra network. "You need to get back to the water to stand a chance, right?" Naruto said in a voice almost sounding like two people. "Naruto? What are?" Percy asked. "Right, Percy?" Naruto reiterated. Yeah. Percy answered. "Follow my lead," Naruto said. In almost like a blur, he made the necessary hand signs. Wind style, great breakthrough. A huge gust of wind blew towards the god of war, but he was smart. He dug his sword into the ground and braced himself for the jutsu. As soon as the wind died, the blonde appeared right in front of him and hit him square in the face, causing him to fly back to the water. Ares definitely didn't expect the extra power from the punch. Percy followed him to the water and they both charged the god of war. As soon as he stepped into the water, all his senses opened up and he was reinvigorated with strength. Naruto and Percy didn't give Ares time to recover. They immediately went to pressure Ares even more. The god of war was able to get to his feet and defend himself from consecutive attacks the two boys were throwing at him. But the problem is when he manages to block on one strike, another strike would scratch him, due to him narrowly dodging them. Unfortunately, Ares' immortality and the fact that he has millennia worth of experience allowed him to continue fighting and managed to gain the upper hand. He started to pick apart the boys. Naruto, with all his shinobi training, and Percy, with his enhanced battle senses from the water, were barely able to defend themselves from the god. More sirens blared signaling the arrival of 3 more cop cars. "Drop the guns," a policeman's voice said from a megaphone. "Guns?" Percy asked aloud. "The mist," was all Naruto said. Percy looked at the god of war's weapon. It seemed to be flickering. One moment it was a two-handed great sword. In another instance, it was a shotgun. Ares glared at the horde of spectators and police, which resulted in a break in the fighting. There were 5 police cars now in a line of police officers crouching behind them, training their pistols at the demigods. Amidst the noise, the demigods could hear the flapping of leathery wings. "This is a private matter," Ares bellowed. "Be gone." He swept his hand, and a wall of red flame rolled across the police cars. The cops barely had enough time to dive to safety as their cars exploded. The crowd of onlookers ran away to safety. Ares roared in laughter. "Now, little heroes, let's add you to the barbecue." Naruto dashed towards the god of war, and kicked him in the face and sent him spiraling back. Percy appeared behind Ares to hit him with the hilt of his sword, but the Ares twisted and sliced Percy in his midsection. The god of war grinned, but the guys he sliced poofed into white smoke and turned into a log. "What?" Ares exclaimed. The real Percy rose from underwater and went in for an attack. Ares was able to defend, and counter-attack. Percy's battle reflexes kicked in and disarmed the god of war just like he did in camp training. Naruto appeared in between them and slammed a blue orb of concentrated energy into the gut of the god of war, sending him back sinking under the ground. The son of Poseidon was now panting hard. He realized that he was exerting power somewhere else. He was holding back the tide, and the pressure was building like the carbonation inside a soda can waiting to come out as soon as the can was opened. "Naruto," Percy called out. He pointed to the now 6-foot wave building up from the built-up tension of the tide. Naruto grinned, and then nodded. Ares rose from the water. The Rasengan hurt him all right, his shirt was now torn from where the jutsu hit him. Any normal human would have passed out or much less died. But, curse his immortality. He was a god after all. Percy and Naruto lowered their weapons, showing their fatigue. This gave the god of war confidence to continue the fight. Percy then released the tide. A 6-foot wall of water slammed itself into Ares, leaving him cursing and sputtering with a mouth of seaweed. Water style, water shark bomb jutsu. Naruto yelled, and a shark made out water exploded at the back of Ares, leaving him lying on the surf right in front of them. Naruto and Percy did a high five after seeing what happened. After that, Percy stabbed Ares straight through the Ares heel. The two then walked to their friends. Arg! Ares yelled as the sea was blasted way around him, sending the boys to the beach. The roar of Ares' power fed the earthquake Hades did earlier. Ares was now standing in a wet circle of sand about 50 feet wide. From his boot, golden ichor flowed from the wound Percy had inflicted earlier. On his face was a mixture of pain, hatred, and disbelief that he would be defeated and knocked around like a ragdoll. He limped towards the beach, muttering curses in ancient Greek. The power the boys were feeling while they were fighting was now replaced by fatigue. They couldn't even defend themselves, much less get on their feet. He could have finished both boys off at this chance he was given, but something stopped him. A cold, heavy presence passed over the beach, draining the color from the area, and the sound was muted. Time was slowed and the temperature was freezing. The darkness lifted. Ares looked stunned. The water flowed back to around Ares' feet, dissipating the golden ichor in the tide. Annabeth and Grover watched in shock, while Percy and Naruto groggily sat up. "You have made an enemy, godlings," Ares said. "You have sealed your fate. Every time you raise your blade in battle, every time you hope for success, you will feel my curse. Beware, Perseus Jackson, Naruto Uzumaki. Beware." His body began to glow. "Percy. Naruto. Don't look," Annabeth warned. The boys averted their eyes as Ares revealed his true immortal form. A few seconds later, the light died. When the boys looked back, Ares was gone. The tide rolled out, revealing Hades' bronze helm of darkness. The boys slowly got to their feet, and made their way to the helm to pick it up. The flap of leathery wings now approached the boys as they made it to their friends. When they landed, the Fury, who the boys recognized as Mrs. Dodds, stepped forward. For once, she didn't look threatening. She looked more disappointed, like she was planning to drag the demigods back to the underworld. "We saw the whole thing," she hissed. "So it really was not you?" Percy nodded and tossed her the helmet. She caught it in surprise. "Tell Lord Hades what really happened," Naruto said. "The war doesn't need to happen." She hesitated, and then licked her lips with her forked tongue. "Live well, Percy Jackson, Naruto Uzumaki. Become true heroes. If you do not, and come into my clutches again." The Fury cackled. Annabeth immediately grabbed the two boys and hugged the two boys. "That was reckless even for you two boys," Annabeth said as a tear rolled down her cheek. Percy blushed. Naruto ruffled Annabeth's hair. The younger blonde let go for the two. "That was incredible," Grover said as he knocked the two boys down to the ground, making the boys wince in pain. "More like terrifying," Annabeth corrected. "Don't scare us like that again," she said as she and Grover helped the two boys up. Naruto chuckled as he scratched the back of his head. "Did you guys feel that, whatever it was?" Percy said. "Guys. It must have been the Furies overhead," Grover offered. Naruto shook her head. "I doubt that. We've encountered them before and it didn't feel like that." The four were still in denial. The memories of what they had talked about in the cab on the way to Santa Monica resurfaced. None of them wanted to talk about it. After a brief pause, Naruto said, "Grover, you felt the energy coming from me, did you?" Grover couldn't speak, but Naruto knew he did. Naruto sighed. "I was hoping no one would ever know of this. I guess I owe you guys an explanation." "Yes, you do, Naruto. We'll hold you to that," Annabeth said. "But for now, we've got to finish the quest. We have to get to New York by tonight," Percy said. "But that's impossible," Annabeth said. Unless we fly, Percy finished her sentence. You mean like fly, like an airplane? The daughter of Athena clarified. Percy nodded. That's a bad idea, Percy. Grover said. What if Zeus strikes you out of the sky? I doubt he would that, Grover. Naruto disagreed. Not when we have his precious weapon in our possession. Right, Zeus? Naruto asked. Up in the sky. A few moments after their conversation, the police, along with the press, had found them standing in the beach among the wreckage. The group would have run away, if not for the police yelling, "Are you kids okay? Where did the kidnapper go?" They didn't know what to say. All that was in their mind was, kidnapper. The press had flooded them with questions about what it was like these past few days trying to get away from their kidnapped, but the demigods still didn't know what they were talking about. The press told them the whole story. Apparently, it all started when these kids made a Greyhound bus explode somewhere in New Jersey. Witnesses suddenly remembered seeing the leather-clad Ares stalking the kids in bus. The kids fled to St. Louis with the kidnapper on their tail. The kidnapper had captured them there and caused an explosion there to get away. A concerned waitress in Denver had seen the kidnapper threaten the kids in a parking lot. Finally, here in Santa Monica, the older boys decided to fight back and protect their friends. All the demigods did was act exhausted and tearful in front of the camera. All I want, Percy said in an interview, is to see my loving stepfather again. Every time I saw him on TV, calling me a delinquent punk, I knew. Sniffle, somehow, we would be okay. And I know he'll want to reward each and every person in this beautiful city with a free major appliance from his store for helping us. Here's the phone number. It was hard for the two demigods and Satyr who were listening to keep up their act when Percy was interviewed. It was a good thing they were able to hold in their laughter while Percy was talking. On the other hand, the police and the media listening were so moved by Percy's speech that they raised money for the 4 tickets for the demigods. At the airport, Naruto and Percy followed Annabeth's lead. Neither of them had been in the air before. One of them was so excited to try flying, while the other one was so nervous, his shirt got wet from the sweat. You can make a guess on who was feeling which. Takeoff was a nightmare for Percy. Every bit of turbulence almost made him wet his pants. He was gripping his armrest for the whole trip. During the trip, he hoped and prayed that Zeus would cut him some slack just this once considering the circumstances. Once during the trip, Percy suddenly grabbed Annabeth's hand, which made the latter blush. The daughter of Athena blushed after what happened, but she didn't say anything. She understood her friend. Naruto, the other hand, had his face glued to the window the whole time. He raised his hands whenever there was turbulence since it made him feel like riding a carnival ride. This is awesome, Naruto said as quietly as he could. Geez, Naruto. Calm down, Grover said. Sorry. I can't help it, Naruto answered. Many of the passengers were staring at him like he was a crazy person. Poor Grover had to come up with an excuse for how Naruto was acting. His skills in lying hadn't improved at all. Luckily, the passengers believed him. They just passed off Grover's signs when he was lying as him being embarrassed. Finally, after what felt like a long flight, the demigods were ADHD after all, they touched down safely at LaGuardia. As the demigods expected, the press was waiting for them. It was a good thing they had a shinobi with them. So, after everyone else had deplaned, Naruto created 4 clones to deal with the press while they sneak away. Once they were sure no one else would see them, they split up at the taxi stand. It was hard for them to do so after everything they've been through. But, Naruto explained that they had to. He told them that they had to go and report the quest as a success to stop the demigods back at camp from fighting any further. Naruto presented himself to go with Percy to provide backup, in case anything untoward happens. Naruto wouldn't admit it, but he wanted to see Mount Olympus for himself. He wanted to check out the place and see if the waitress in the Lotus Hotel was right. He wanted to see if there really was an Ichiriku's ramen stand in the godly mountain. Naruto and Percy hopped into their own taxi after Annabeth and Grover hopped into their own. In 30 minutes, they made it to their destination. Despite living on this world for quite some time now, Naruto still marveled at the architecture of the had never seen anything quite like this in the elemental nations. Not wasting any more time, the two boys entered the Empire State. They must have looked like homeless kids since their clothes were in tatters from their previous encounter. They decided to leave it be since they had to complete the quest. Together, the two walked up to the guard at the front desk. 600th floor please. Percy said. The guard was reading a book with a picture of a boy in glasses riding a broomstick. Naruto tried reading some of those books, but he wasn't much of a fan of the people who could only do magic with a wooden stick. Not when he can perform similar feats with a quick hand sign. Plus he heard of those other wizards who go on quests just like these demigods did, and just like he did back in the elemental nations. The guard must have found the book interesting because he didn't even look up when he said, "No such floor kiddo. I need an audience with Zeus." Percy pressed. He gave Percy a vacant smile. "Sorry. You heard the man," Naruto said. The boys almost decided that the guy was a regular mortal, but the guard said, "No appointment, no audience kiddos. Lord Zeus doesn't see anyone unannounced. Show him," the blonde shinobi said. Percy grinned and unzipped his bag. "Really? Not even with this?" The guard momentarily looked up from his book, and his eyes instantly went as wide as dinner plates and the color drained from his face. "That isn't. It's the real deal," Naruto said. "You better get us up there before Zeus wreaks havoc on America." The guard scrambled out of his chair, and fumbled around his desk for a key card, then handed it to Percy. "Insert this in the security slot, and make sure no one is with you in the elevator," the guard instructed. "What if we brought someone else up there? Like a mortal?" Percy asked. "Oh kid, you don't wanna know," the guard answered. "You should get going." With that, the demigods made their way to the elevator. Percy did as the guard instructed. The card disappeared in the slot and a new button appeared on the console. It was a big red button with the number 600 written on it. Percy pressed it and they were on their way. Music played in the elevator while they waited. "Raindrops keep falling on my head." Finally, the elevator made a ding sound signaling their arrival at God's Mountain. What they saw made the boys awestruck. From the top of the clouds, the decapitated peak of the mountain could be seen, with its summit covered in snow. On the mountainside, dozens of multi-leveled palaces stood perched to the mountain. It was a city of mansions, all of them with columned porticos, gilded terraces and bronze braziers carrying thousands of fires throughout the city. Roads wound crazily up the peak, where the largest palace gleamed against the snow. Perched on the side of the mountain was a garden filled with olive trees and rose bushes. In the distance, the demigods could make out an open-air market with colorful tents, a stone amphitheater on one side of the mountain and a hippodrome and a coliseum on the other side. It was what you would imagine an ancient Greek city would be, except it wasn't in ruins. Everything was alive and well, just like what Athens would have looked like long ago. And here I thought New York was the most outrageous thing I would see in my lifetime. Naruto managed to say amidst his awe. After getting over their shock, Naruto and Percy made their way through Olympus. The first thing they passed through was an olive tree. Residing in the tree was a group of wood nymphs. They threw olives at the demigods, which hit Percy a few times, but not Naruto. The blonde was able to snatch the olives from the air. He gave them cold stare, and when the nymphs realized who his godly parent is, they scurried away and hid in the trees. In the hawkers in the market they saw earlier, vendors hounded them to buy their goods of all different kinds. They were offered to buy ambrosia on a stick, a new shield, and also a replica of the golden fleece, as seen on Hephaestus TV. On one side of the market, Naruto got distracted by the Ichiraku ramen stand, which was the reason he wanted to accompany Percy to Mount Olympus. Percy to drag him and remind him of the quest they had to complete. In the park, the 9 muses were tuning their instruments for a concert. There was a small crowd of satyrs, naiads, and a bunch of good-looking teenagers who Naruto figured were minor gods and goddesses. Nobody seemed to be worried about an impending civil war. Several of the minor gods whispered among themselves when the two passed. After a little bit of walking, the two boys climbed the main road towards the big palace at the peak. "Hey Perce, doesn't that palace look familiar?" Naruto asked his friend. Percy took a look at the palace. Now that you mention it. It's like our friend downstairs palace, right? Yeah, it's just more colorful and glittery. It's just sad, you know. Hades isn't allowed up here, so he built his palace to look like this. Yeah. Steps they climbed led up to a central courtyard. Beyond that, there was the throne room. Scrap that, room wasn't even enough to describe this room. This room made the Grand Central Station look like a broom closet. There were massive columns that rose through a domed ceiling which was gilded with moving constellations. An enormous fire crackled in the central hearth pit. 12 giant thrones were arranged in an inverted U pattern just like the cabins at Camp Half-Blood. Only 2 of the thrones were occupied, the head throne and the one on its immediate left. The gods waiting for them were in their giant form, just as Hades had been when the demigods met him. The one on the head throne was wearing a dark blue pinstriped suit. He sat on a simple throne made of solid platinum. He had a well-trimmed beard, marbled gray and black like a storm cloud. His face was proud and handsome and grim, his eyes rainy gray. This was Zeus, the lord of the gods. As they approached them, the demigods could smell ozone in the air, and their bodies were starting to tingle. The god next to him was dressed very differently. He wore leather sandals, khaki Bermuda shorts, and a Tommy Bahama shirt with coconuts and parrots all over it. His skin was deeply tanned, and his hands scarred like an old-time fisherman's. His hair was black, and his face had that same brooding look that could be seen on Percy's face sometimes. His eyes were sea green just like Percy's. His throne was a deep-sea fisherman's chair. It was the simple swiveling kind, with a black leather seat and a built-in holster for a fishing pole. Instead of a pole, the holster held a bronze trident, flickering with green light around the tips. This was Poseidon, god of the seas. The gods weren't moving or speaking, but there was tension in the air, as if they'd just finished an argument. Percy walked to Poseidon first, while Naruto bowed to Zeus. "Father," Percy said to Poseidon. "Lord Zeus," Naruto greeted. Then, the boys switched places and greeted the other god that they didn't greet. "You should learn from your friend here, boy," Zeus said to Percy. "Should you not address the master of this house first?" The 2 boys kept their heads down. "Peace, brother," Poseidon finally said. "It is only right that the boy defers to his father." "You still claim him then?" Zeus said menacingly. "You claim this child whom you sired against our sacred oath." "I have admitted my wrongdoing," Poseidon said. "Now, let us hear him speak." Chapter 23, Homecoming. A cab rolled in the middle of nowhere. There were picket fences with signs of "Pick Your Own Strawberries" plastered on it. "Are you sure about this, kids?" the cab driver asked. The 2 of them nodded. "We get that a lot," a blonde-haired girl said. "So, you own this place?" The cab driver tried to make small talk. "Yeah, you could say that," a satyr said. Of course, the driver didn't know that. "Well, if you say so." The cab driver relented. The 2 kids in the back seat paid the driver and got off the cab. They walked through the fences and climbed up a hill, revealing a summer camp, with Greek architecture all around. The campers greeted them as they walked through. They walked up to a sky-blue farmhouse where 2 men were playing cards in its porch. Annabeth and Grover. The man on a wheelchair greeted. "You're back." "Hey Kyron, hey Mr. D." The 2 answered. The other porky man, don't tell him I called him that, who was Mr. D, didn't even look up from his cards. "I assume the quest is a success." The 2 nodded. "That's a relief," Kyron said. "But where are Naruto and Percy?" "Well, Mount Olympus. I have spared him once already," the king of the gods complained. "Daring to fly through my domain. Pah! I should have blasted him out of the sky for his impudence. And risk destroying your own master bolt and unleash it onto this world?" Poseidon asked calmly. Percy looked confused, not knowing what it was. "Not to mention the other innocent people in the plane with us." Naruto grumbled to himself, making sure the gods won't hear him. "Let us at least hear him and his friend here out, brother," the gods of the seas said to his brother. Zeus grumbled some more. I shall listen. He decided. Then, I shall make up my mind whether or not to cast this boy down from Olympus. Perseus and Naruto was it, address Lord Zeus. Tell him you story. The two demigods recounted their whole ordeal, from the fury revealing itself in the museum to the battle with Ares. Percy took out the bolt from the bag Ares had given them way back in Denver. In the presence of its owner, the cylinder started sparking. There was a deafening silence after they recounted their story, with only the crackling of the hearth to fill in the silence. Zeus opened his palm. The lightning bolt flew into it. As he closed his fist, the metallic points flared with electricity, until he was holding a 20-foot-long javelin hissing with energy. I sense that the boy is telling the truth. Zeus muttered. But that Ares would do such a thing, it is most unlike him. He is proud and impulsive, Poseidon said. It runs in the family. Zeus flashed him an irritated look. Percy and Naruto looked at each other. The latter signaled him to say it. Lord? Percy asked. Yes. Both gods said. Ares didn't act alone. Percy said. Something came up with the idea. Naruto continued. Percy described his dreams. Honestly, this was the first time he was hearing of this too, since he was asleep when Percy told his dreams to Annabeth and Grover. Naruto even told them the momentarily breath of evil that seemed to stop the world and made Ares back off from the fight. In the dreams, Percy said. The voice told me to bring the bolt in the underworld. Ares kind of told us that he'd been having dreams too. I think it was using Ares to start a war. So, you are accusing Hades after all? Zeus asked. Percy didn't know what to say. No sir, Naruto explained. Lord Zeus, we have been in the presence of Lord Hades. The feeling on the beach and the presence trying to pull us to the pit in the underworld felt extremely different. We suspect it's something is stirring down there, something older than the gods. Plus, Percy mentioned someone called, the Crooked One, from his dreams. Zeus and Poseidon looked at each other. They had a quick and intense discussion in ancient Greek. The two demigods in front of them didn't understand most of the words, but they caught one that they did understand. Father. Could it be? Naruto thought. That word alone confirmed his and Annabeth's suspicions. Poseidon tried to give some kind of suggestion, but Zeus raised his hand, cutting him off. We shall speak of this no more, Zeus said. I must go personally to purify this thunderbolt in the waters of Lemnos to remove the human taint. Heroes. Godlings, you have done me a service. Few heroes could have accomplished as much. We had help, sir. Percy said. Annabeth Chase and Grover Underwood. To show my thanks, I shall spare your life. I do not trust you, Perseus Jackson. I do not like what your arrival means to Olympus, but for the sake of peace in the family, I shall let you live. Thank you sir, Percy answered. Then the god of lightning turned to Naruto, as for you, I shall let you continue staying in this world. I sense you have the wind affinity and the potential to learn the lightning affinity in the future. I must admit, I hate to have a demigod of your standards in this world, but for the sake of my daughter, you are free to stay, provided you use your talents for the good of Olympus, but if you fail to reel in your powers and misuse them against Olympus, I shall send you back to your world. Yes sir, Naruto said. And, do not presume to fly again, Perseus Jackson. Do not let me find you two here when I return, he warned. Otherwise, you shall taste this bolt, and it shall be your last sensation. Percy gulped. Thunder shook the palace. With a blinding flash of lightning, Zeus was gone. I see where Lord Dionysus gets his flair for dramatic exits. Naruto commented. Yes, well, he is Zeus' son after all. Poseidon said. Naruto could sense that Poseidon wanted to speak with Percy in private, so he said, Percy, certainly now I can go hit that ramen stand. I'm just dying to check it out. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lord Poseidon. And Percy, meet me at the ramen stand later, I might not be done by then. Poseidon nodded, then Naruto left. So that's Artemis' son. Poseidon said. He's certainly different. Yeah, you can say that again. Different teenagers approached Naruto as he wandered the streets of Olympus searching for the ramen stall he saw earlier. They must have been minor gods and goddesses. After a while of walking and greeting, Naruto had made it to the Olympian branch of Ichiraku Ramen. One big bowl of miso ramen with every topping you have. Naruto ordered. Do you have drachma to pay for it? The attendant asked. Of course, the blonde patted his pockets and the smile on his face disappeared. Oh yeah. I gave my pouch of drachma to Karen. Damn it. Naruto grumbled aloud. I'll take care of it. A child's voice said. Naruto turned his head to see who said that. It was a 9-year-old girl with mousy brown hair and fiery red eyes which reminded him of Aries, except it was warm and comforting. She was dressed simply, but her beauty was evident. This is Hestia, goddess of the hearth. Lay Lady Hestia. Naruto asked. And make that too, please. Hestia told the attendant. Yes ma'am. Coming right up. The attendant said. The goddess then turned to Naruto and greeted him. Hello Naruto. To what do I owe this meeting? The blonde asked. Oh, I just came to see my niece's son. She answered. You know, you have made quite the impression up here in Olympus after your quest. Naruto smiled. Well, I just did what had to be done to prevent your family from tearing each other apart. Plus, those kids were new to this quest thing. I just wanted to keep them safe. I see. That is admirable, protecting your friends like they're your own. And I thank you for looking out for my brothers. They can be hard-headed. Naruto nodded as he took a sip on the ramen that the attendant placed on their table. Family, it was something that I never had, but I don't want yours to fall apart just because of Zeus' toy of mass destruction. Thunder boomed, making Naruto frown. The will of fire, I sense it burns brightly in you. Hestia told him. Naruto's eyes widened in realization. But that's what Jiji said? Yes Naruto. Hestia explained. It was I who bequeathed the will of fire to the Hashirama, seeing his drive and burning desire to protect the people even from his dear friend. The fire in its name doesn't only come from the name of the land where you are from, you know. A sad smile crept to Naruto's face, all the memories of Sarutobi coming to visit him flooded back. Hestia placed a hand on his shoulder. Naruto felt the warmth of the touch. Enough of the history lesson. This isn't the time for that. Your mother wanted me to see how you are doing. She did. Naruto's eyes brightened. Where is she, by the way? Oh Naruto. Her domain keeps her busier than any of us here. I can't see her anytime soon, can I? Hestia shook her head. You just have to be patient, Naruto. The time will come soon. At least I have something to look forward to, right? The blonde grinned. Speaking of which, I was waiting for you to come and bring Zeus his bolt. I wanted to ask you a favor. Hestia said. What is it, Lady Hestia? Naruto asked. As you know, I am a virgin goddess. I do not have children of my own. Spread my domain. I would like you to be my champion. Me? Why me? You never compromise when it comes to your friends. In fact, you see them as family. You also never stop fighting in what you believe in. Those qualities are what make you perfect to be my champion, so what you say? I will make you proud. Naruto replied. I know you will Naruto. Hestia said. Hestia was finished with her meal, so she stood up, prompting Naruto to stand up too. That was an interesting meal. I am beginning to see why you see this as the food of the gods. Naruto chuckled and scratched the back of his head. It's time for me to go, Naruto. Thank you for accepting my offer. From now on, you will have my blessing. Hestia said. An orange aura enveloped Naruto and disappeared as quickly as it appeared. No, thank you Lady Hestia. Naruto said. You can have as much ramen as you want. Let Percy have some when he comes over. Hestia offered. Naruto literally had stars in his eyes. Really? You're the best. Hestia nodded. I have to go now Naruto. I'll see you back at camp. Olympian Ichiraku. I figured you were still here. Percy told the still-eating blonde with a mountain of bowls on his table. Hey Percy. Want some ramen? Naruto offered. Nah, I'm good. Percy declined. Geez, where do you put all these stuff? Naruto grinned in between slurps. So how'd that talk with your dad go? Naruto inquired. I don't know, good, I guess. Percy shrugged and told Naruto the details. Mom's at home now. Lord Hades kept his promise. Percy nodded. Then, what are we waiting for? You. Oh sorry, let me finish this last one first. Back in the mortal world. Percy hailed a cab so he could get back to the apartment. He almost forgot that he didn't have money on him. It was a good thing Naruto reminded him and lent him some. He was about to board the taxi when he noticed the blonde was hanging back. You coming? Percy asked. Naruto shook his head. I think you got this, man. Besides, Gabe won't be happy to see me. And I got to see if Annabeth and Grover are okay. Percy chuckled. He'll be angrier with me. I basically offered the whole nation free appliances. Oh yeah. That, Naruto laughed as well. Well, I'll see you back at camp. Percy, then, went on his way to see his mother again, and Naruto hailed another cab to get back to camp. Half-Blood Hill. Naruto. Annabeth and Grover shouted as soon as they saw the blonde at the hill. We were so worried that Zeus would smite you. Grover said. Well, I kept Percy in line for that one. Naruto chuckled. Speaking of him, where is the seaweed brain? Annabeth asked. He went to see his mom. They're having their reunion as we speak. Naruto answered. Are you sure Percy would be okay? Gabe's gonna kill him. Grover sounded worried. He'll be fine. If this quest proves anything, it's that the water boy can handle anything that's thrown at him. Naruto answered. Annabeth and Grover nodded. Ah. You're back, Naruto. A voice said from behind them. Hey Chiron. Naruto greeted. It's good to be back. Come now, then, the Kemp would like to see you. Chiron said and gestured the three to follow him. Naruto. A voice whispered from somewhere. The blonde whipped his head back as soon as he heard his name called. The odd thing was nobody was there. All he saw were the trees that surrounded the woods. Naruto. You coming? Annabeth called him when he noticed that Naruto was lagging behind. I'll find out later. The blonde shinobi thought, then ran to catch up. One by one, the campers came to greet Naruto as soon as they saw him. If he didn't have a lot of fans before, then he definitely had more now. It was like he won some kind of reality TV contest, which was closer to the truth than they thought because of Hephaestus TV. An hour later, Percy arrived at camp. His friends greeted him at the borders of the camp. Just like with Naruto, the other campers came to greet him, but the difference now was the real party was beginning, if you could call this a party. They were the first heroes since Luke to return alive from a quest, so it was a long time since they did this, but it was camp tradition for the returning heroes to wear laurel wreaths on their heads and have a big feast to honor them. They even led a procession to the bonfire, where they burned their burial shrouds their cabin mates made in their absence. Annabeth's shroud was a beautiful gray silk with embroidered owls with the symbol of Athena in the middle. Percy said that it was a shame not to bury anyone in it. Annabeth punched him in the arm and told him to shut up. Naruto added that it was a good thing for it to be unused. Since Percy didn't have any cabin mates, the Ares cabin had volunteered to make his shroud. They'd taken an old bedsheet and painted smiley faces with X'd out eyes around the border, and the word loser plastered in the middle of the shroud. Oh, Percy had fun burning his shroud. Naruto's shroud was made by the Aphrodite cabin. Originally, the Apollo cabin wanted to make the shroud since they were his cousins, but a few bets in a capture the flag game when they were away, the Aphrodite cabin somehow won it. I guess they were that motivated. The children of the love goddess made a silver shroud with different animals embroidered on it and the symbol of Artemis in the middle. Naruto thought it was beautiful, so he reluctantly burned his shroud. The Apollo cabin led a sing-along in the amphitheater. As a special treat for tonight, there was dancing unlike the other times they did it. The campers had a blast as they danced to the different songs that the children of Apollo sang, even Grover, who got awarded with his long-desired searcher's license. Well, everyone except for one cabin counselor of the Hermes cabin. Everyone was caught off guard when the music suddenly slowed. The campers watched as Naruto walked up to Annabeth to ask her for a dance, which made the daughter of Athena blush like a tomato, but she accepted Naruto's offer in the end. Grover danced with a wood nymph, Juniper I think her name was. Katie from the Demeter cabin was offered a dance by Travis. And Percy ended up dancing with Clarice. At first, the daughter of Ares threatened to kill anyone who would ask her to. Naruto suggested that the water boy dance with her to make up for the unfortunate first impressions the two had. They kinda look good together. Naruto commented. Yeah, they both look so cute with the massive blushes on their faces. Annabeth added. Like you were any better earlier. Naruto snickered. Shut up, Blondie. Annabeth punched him in the arm. But, you're blonde too, so you can't use that. But, oh never mind. When curfew struck, Mr. D clapped his hands and everyone went quiet. He made a half-hearted welcome back speech before the campers went to their cabins. Yes, so the bolt is returned and the brats didn't get themselves killed. Hoorah and all that. In other announcements, there will be no canoe races this Saturday. That night, Naruto moved back to cabin 8. Just like the Apollo cabin in the morning, the cabin was glowing silver in the night. Odd, the cabin looks smaller than I remember. Naruto wondered aloud. He quickly got settled in the room. On the headboard of his bed, there was another note. Dear Naruto. Congratulations on completing your quest. You have made me proud. The hunters have told me of your meeting in the waterbed store. I am glad you are safe and keeping your friends safe. I felt the Kyuubi's power leak out from the seal. Fair warning, son, refrain from using the fox's power too much as it takes a toll on you, especially the higher stages. I suggest you train hard, so you won't rely on it too much. There are different jutsus in the scrolls in your room. Why don't you try one of them? Lastly, I heard from Hestia that you accepted her offer to be her champion. I know you will do her and me proud. I hope I could have seen you when you were last in Olympus, but my domain keeps me away. Soon, my son, we will see each other. Become strong. I will always be watching you just as the moon watches over the night sky. Love. Mom. A tear ran down Naruto's cheeks as he read the note. It told him that wherever his mom is or whatever she is doing, she is still thinking of him. You got it, Mom. He said aloud. 1 week later, a letter arrived in the big house addressed to Naruto and Percy. She wrote in the letter that Gabe had mysteriously disappeared off the planet. She had filed a missing persons report, but she had a funny feeling that he would never be found. She also wrote about a life-sized concrete sculpture to a collector in an art gallery in Soho. She named it, The Poker Player. She got so much money because of it that she was able to put a deposit down on a new apartment and made a payment on her first semester tuition at NYU. The gallery was clamoring for more of her work, saying that it was a huge step forward in super ugly neorealism, or so they say. She declined the offer, saying that it was a one-time thing. She said that she disposed of the tools that Percy gave. She would turn to writing completely. She asked about Naruto, and why he didn't come to the apartment when the quest was finished. She told Naruto to not beat himself up about failing her. The important thing was she was back now. She also told him that Naruto is welcome to live with them so he wouldn't live alone anymore. At the bottom, there was a PS for Percy. It said that Percy was signed up for a new private school. It said that there was a deposit down to hold his spot in case he wanted to enroll for 7th grade. It said that he could live at home, but if he wanted to stay year-round, it was okay. The two decided that Percy should keep it. Naruto told himself to scrape in extra offerings for Hades to place Gabe in the fields of punishment and to Athena for her blessing on Sally's education. On the 4th of July, the whole camp gathered at the beach to watch the fireworks display by Cabin 9. The Hephaestus kids anchored a barge offshore and loaded it with rockets the size of Patriot missiles. Annabeth explained that the blasts would be sequenced so tightly that they'd look like frames of animation across the sky. The finale was supposed to be a couple of 100-foot-tall Spartan warriors who would crackle to life above the ocean, fight a battle, and then explode into a million colors. The three from the Lightning Bolt quest set a picnic blanket. While they were doing that, Grover showed up to say goodbye to his friends. He was dressed in his usual jeans and t-shirt and sneakers, only this time he looked older, almost high school age. His goatee had gotten thicker. He'd put on weight. His horns had grown at least an inch, so he now had to wear his Rasta cap all the time to pass as human. "I'm off," Grover said. "I came to, you know." His friends tried to sound upbeat. After all, this was a stepping stone for Grover's dream. They should be happy for him. They were his closest friends after all. "So, Grover, where are you going to look first?" Percy asked. "Kind of a secret," Grover answered, looking embarrassed. "I wish you could come with me, guys, but humans and Pan." "It's okay, man. We understand." Naruto clapped him on the shoulder. "Always keep your fake feet on." Annabeth started to fuss over him. "Yes, Annabeth. You have enough cans for your trip?" "Yeah. And you remembered your reed pipes?" "I got it right here." Grover patted his pockets. "Geez, Annabeth, you sound like my old mama goat." He wasn't really annoyed. "Well then, wish me luck." He hugged his friends, and then headed back through the dunes. Fireworks exploded to life overhead, Hercules killing the Nemean lion, Artemis chasing the boar, George Washington, who, by the way, was a son of Athena, crossing the Delaware, Naruto's whirlpool symbol at the back of his custom-made camp shirts which was looking like a real whirlpool, a silver bow and arrow firing a shot to commemorate the first sun Artemis, Poseidon raising the waves in the ocean. "Hey Grover!" Percy called out. He was at the edge of the woods, but he turned to look. "Wherever you are going, I hope they make good enchiladas," Percy shouted. "And smack those bullies with that stick of yours," Naruto added. Grover grinned, and then he was gone, the trees closing around him. "We'll see him again," Annabeth said. The two boys nodded. Even though no searcher was able to return in 2,000 years, they had to believe that Grover would be the first. July passed. The boys began planning strategies to keep the flag out of the Ares cabin's hands. On some occasions, Percy and Naruto would separate teams as a sort of friendly rivalry. On those times, Naruto's team proved to be better. To keep things interesting, Naruto suggested a free-for-all against all the cabins to steal scrolls from the other teams just like in the Chunin exam that Naruto attended. The other campers loved the idea, so they alternated between the two games. As days gone by, Naruto tried to find the source of the voice, but he couldn't find it, or sometimes he didn't have the time. Things went on just like that until the last night of the summer session came all too quickly. The campers had one more meal with each other. They burned part of their dinner for the gods. Naruto was sure to scrape an extra for his patron, and two other gods he asked favors from. At the bonfire, the senior counselors awarded the end of summer beads. Percy and Naruto each got their own leather necklace. The bead was pitch black and with a sea green trident on one side and a silver bow on the other side. The choice was unanimous, Luke announced. This bead commemorates the first son of the sea god and the first ever son of the huntress at this camp, and the quest they undertook into the darkest part of the underworld to stop a war. The entire camp got to their feet and cheered. Even Ares' cabin felt obliged to stand. Naruto was so happy. This was the first time he felt that he was part of a real family. The sad thing was, most of them would be leaving for the year. At least, they had a lot to look forward to. Chapter 24, The Prophecy is Fulfilled. The day our heroes dreaded has finally arrived. A form appeared beside each and every demigod's bedside. The way it was filled out definitely told them that it was Mr. D, the camp director, who made it because all their names were spelled wrong. Written on the note was, "Dear, if you intend to stay at Camp Half-Blood year-round, you must inform the big house by noon today. If you do not announce your intentions, we will assume you have vacated your cabin or died a horrible death. Cleaning harpies will begin work at sundown. They will be authorized to eat any unregistered campers. All personal articles left behind will be incinerated in the lava pit. Have a nice day." Mr. D. Dionysus. Camp Director, Olympian Council Number 12. One son of Artemis didn't know if he should stay year-round or leave the camp and finish school. But since it was the last day of camp and there are no more activities, he had a chance to look for the voice that called out to his name all those months ago. Naruto trekked through Half-Blood Hill, looking for any sign of where the voice might be. Just then, the voice came again. PST. The voice giggled. Naruto whipped his head to where he thought he heard the voice. Hey, over here. There it was again. This time the blonde was sure where it was coming from. It was coming from the big pine tree at the border of camp. Cool, you noticed. Come here. It called out to him. Naruto went straight to the origin of the voice. He wasn't sure what to do, but he placed a hand on the tree to examine it. That was the moment that he was sucked into the tree. He was disoriented for a minute. He shook himself off his stupor to get his bearings. A voice spoke. This time it wasn't a whisper. It was like he was face to face with owner of the voice. Finally, I get to meet you in person. The voice of a girl said. Naruto looked up to see the girl he had dreamt of way back in the truck. Thalia? Naruto asked. The girl nodded. Good, you remember me. I was thinking you would forget about me. I never forget a face. Naruto replied. So, we really did meet in that dream. Yes, we did. Thalia said. I was surprised you were able to enter my limbo. Beats me, Naruto shrugged. Probably because I'm the son of the goddess of the wilderness. Maybe. Damn, I'll never get used to that. You know, virgin goddess and all. They both laughed. Wait. Naruto said, suddenly realizing something. Grover said you died at Half-Blood Hill. Thalia shook her head. My dad turned what remained of my life force into a tree, so here I am stuck to reliving my life over and over. So that's when Naruto started. Yeah. Thalia said, so, I heard you prevented a civil war. How did you know? The blonde asked. I hear everything that's happening around here. I'm basically protecting camp now, so yeah. The daughter of Zeus explained. Oh, I guess I should thank you then. Naruto bowed in gratitude. We're able to live here in peace thanks to you. Don't mention it. Thalia shook it off. I just wanted these kids to be safe. They both smiled. Thanks for watching over Annabeth and Grover in the quest. Thalia said. No problem. It was their first time they were going out on quest, so I didn't want them to fail, or worse. Naruto didn't need to finish that sentence. It brought him back to his first time out of the village when he froze when two Chunin attacked. Thalia's expression hardened. I sense that there might be some danger coming from you. It's been bugging me ever since we met. Oh yeah. About that. Naruto didn't know how to explain it, but he told Thalia all the same. A few minutes later, the two went on talking about their own lives. Thalia felt sorry for Naruto. It wasn't his fault that some kind of demon fox was sealed inside of him. Sorry about that. I didn't know. It's fine. Naruto cut her off. Do Annabeth and Grover know? Naruto shook his head. It's not for me to say, but you should tell if you really trust them. I don't know. I told you how the villagers treated me. This time it will be different. Thalia put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. We're demigods, we know what it's like to be ignored and seen as a pest. You're right. I'll gather up the courage to tell them. Good. I promise they'll be more accepting. After she said that, a look of horror appeared on Thalia's face. What's wrong? Naruto asked. How did I not feel that coming? Thalia said. One of the campers is. Naruto widened his eyes. He didn't want anything bad happen to his newfound family. I should get going. I might be able to save them. Be careful. Thalia snapped her fingers and Naruto found himself out in the forest again. Oh no. Percy. Naruto said aloud, sensing Percy in danger. The blonde shinobi jumped from tree to get to his friend's aid as fast as he could. When he got to Percy's location, He was surprised to see Luke watching Percy succumb to some kind of bug bite in his hand. A few feet from Percy was a scorpion with a slash wound on its abdomen. Naruto threw some kunai at Luke, but he deflected it with his sword. Luke smirked. "Good of you to join us, Naruto, but you're too late." Percy was now crawling to the creek. His hand was submerged in the water, but nothing was happening. "So, you're the traitor?" Naruto asked, his kunai drawn. "You almost killed Grover with those shoes." "I'll admit. I wasn't expecting you to join the quest, or this piece of shit to give my gift to Grover. You just didn't think this through. No matter. You've only delayed our plans. He will rise again, and when that happens..." Luke let out an evil laugh. "Goodbye Naruto, Percy." Luke waved them farewell. Luke slashed his sword and he disappeared in a ripple of darkness. "Help. Please." Percy croaked. "Oh no, Percy," Naruto said. "Hang on. I got you." Naruto created about 50 clones to scour the area, and then slung the son of Poseidon on his shoulder and ran as fast as he could to the big house. The big house. Chiron was blowing a conch horn when he saw Naruto approaching with Percy slung on his shoulder, seemingly in distress. "What's wrong, my boy?" Chiron asked with worry in his voice. "What happened to Percy?" "It's Luke, Chiron," Naruto explained. "He did this to him." "You can explain later, my boy. We need to make sure he's alright," Chiron said. Naruto nodded and brought him to the infirmary with Chiron in tow. When they got there, Naruto laid Percy onto a bed. The centaur examined Percy. "I recognize this mark. It is a bite from a pit scorpion. He had been poisoned." Annabeth came running in. "I saw you carrying Percy here. What happened?" "Should I tell her, Chiron? She might not like it," Naruto asked the centaur. The centaur nodded. "The campers need to know about this." You see. Luke poisoned Percy." Annabeth stared at Naruto in disbelief. "No," she managed to say. "You have to be wrong. Luke wouldn't. I knew she would react like this. Damn it, Chiron," Naruto muttered to himself. "Luke told me everything, Annabeth." Naruto narrated what he had learned from Luke while Chiron listened while treating Percy. After Naruto was finished, the daughter of Athena had tears in her eyes. "You should be betrayed by one who calls you friend," she said after a while. "Yes," Naruto said. "I'm afraid that's what the prophecy is talking about. I still can't believe Luke would do something like this. No one was expected this." Naruto walked forward and held Annabeth. The girl just sobbed into his chest. Naruto knew what it felt like to be betrayed by a friend. He understood what his friend was going through. After all, they had been through a lot. Percy groaned, breaking the moment. Annabeth wiped her tears. "We better look after Percy." "Yes, you better do that," Chiron said. "I shall report what we have learned to Olympus." "Sure, Chiron," Naruto replied. "Leave Percy to us." Chiron nodded, and then galloped outside. A few hours later, Percy's eyes fluttered open, only to find Annabeth feeding him nectar, Naruto dabbing the sweat on his forehead, and Argus at the doorway standing guard. Fortunately, the color had returned to his face. Percy raised his hand to massage his head, but he noticed his hand bandaged like a club. "I thought I swatted that thing away," the son of Poseidon said. "Apparently, you didn't," Naruto said. "Geez, Percy. You gave us quite the scare. Tell me about it." Percy scratched the back of his head with his other hand. "The water wasn't working at all earlier." "Is it true?" Annabeth asked with hope in his voice. "What?" Percy asked. "Do you mean?" Annabeth nodded. "Luke." Percy looked at Naruto. The blonde gestured for him to go ahead. "'Fraid so," Percy said. The younger blonde hung her head low. "I was hoping you would say something different." "What's with her?" Percy asked Naruto. "She can't accept that Luke had deserted the camp," the blonde shinobi explained. "Anyway, how are you feeling?" Like my insides have been frozen, then microwaved. Percy described. That's to be expected, considering how deadly Chiron said it was. Naruto said. Thanks for coming to get me. Percy thanked the blonde. Don't mention it. The blonde waved it off. Where's Chiron anyway? Percy asked, noticing the absence of the centaur. After treating you, he went to Olympus to report what happened. This time Annabeth spoke up. Percy nodded, and then took a sip of nectar. The room was quiet after that. May the gods curse him. Annabeth spoke aloud. What? The two boys asked. Luke. He was never the same after his quest. Annabeth said. You mean the one that gave him the scar? Percy asked. Annabeth nodded. Luke's out there right now. Percy suggested. We should go after him. Percy, that isn't a good idea. Annabeth said. Lord Zeus closed this matter. Naruto said after. The stew. Percy, choose your words carefully. You already went through his domain. Naruto reminded. All right. He won't even talk about Cronus. Which is why we have to do this ourselves. Percy raised his voice. Revenge isn't the path you should walk down, Percy. I have lost a friend to vengeance once already, I won't lose you too. Naruto explained. Besides, you're in no condition to engage, Luke. You can't even hold a sword now. Annabeth added. He could hit Luke with his hand. After all, it looks like a club. Naruto joked, making Percy blush. Annabeth punched Naruto in the arm. Not now, Naruto. Ow. The blonde complained. Sorry. But we can't sit back and do nothing. Percy said. No, my boy. Chiron said as he entered the room. We will sit back, but we are going to prepare. Remember, the Time Lord wants you to be unraveled. He wants you judgment to be clouded with fear and anger. Chiron, you're back. Naruto and Annabeth said. Yes, well, Lord Zeus still doesn't want to talk about this matter. Figures, Naruto commented. But Chiron. Percy tried to protest. We will prepare, Percy. Train hard. Your time will come. The centaur said with finality. Assuming I live that long. The son of Poseidon grumbled. Chiron walked to the bed and put a hand on Percy's shoulder. You'll have to trust me, Percy. You will live. But first you must decide your path for the coming year. I cannot tell you the right choices, but you must decide whether to stay at Camp Half-Blood year-round, or return to the mortal world for 7th grade and be a summer camper. Think on that for now. The centaur glanced at the only girl in the room. Oh, and, Annabeth my dear, whenever you're ready, they're here. Who's here? Percy and Naruto asked together. Nobody answered. Chiron walked out of the room. All that can be heard were clops of Chiron's hooves on the wooden floorboards. Annabeth studied Percy's drink. Naruto placed a hand on Annabeth's shoulder. You okay? I'm fine. I just took Percy's advice on something. When did I give you advice? Annabeth sighed. You're hopeless sometimes. Give me a break. ADHD, remember. Percy slipped down his bed and tried to stand up. That's not a good idea, Percy. Naruto warned. But I want to. A wave of nausea hit the injured boy. Fortunately, the older blonde was able to catch him as he crumpled to the ground. Told ya, Naruto scolded. I'm fine. Percy insisted. I don't want to be lying here while Luke plots to destroy the Western world. He managed a step forward, and then another, still leaning heavily on Naruto. Annabeth and Argus followed the two boys outside, with the latter keeping his distance. By the time we reached the porch, Percy's face was beaded with sweat. He felt his stomach twist into knots. But he had managed to make it all the way to the railing. It was dusk. The camp looked completely deserted. The cabins were dark and the volleyball pit silent. No canoes cut the surface of the lake. Beyond the woods and the strawberry fields, the Long Island Sound glittered in the last light of the sun. What are you going to do? Annabeth asked Percy. I don't know. Percy shrugged. I got a feeling Chiron wants me to stay year-round, so I can train more, but I'm not sure I want to, but I don't want to leave you two with only Clarice for company. Annabeth pursed her lips, and then said quietly, I'm going home for the year, Percy. If anything, maybe only Naruto would stay alone with Clarice. That's new to me. Naruto tilted his head. And I haven't signed my form yet cause of all the madness, so I'm not sure either. Are you going to your dad's? Percy asked. Annabeth nodded. She pointed towards the crest of Half-Blood Hill. Next to Thalia's pine tree, at the very edge of the camp's magical boundaries, a family stood silhouetted, two little children, a woman, and a tall man with blonde hair. They seemed to be waiting. The man was holding a backpack that the words Waterland plaster on it. I wrote him a letter when we got back, Annabeth explained. Just like you suggested. I told him I was sorry. I'd come home for the school year if he still wanted me. He wrote back immediately. We decided we'd give it another try. That's good. But what are you going to do about the monsters? Annabeth was about to answer, but Naruto spoke up. I guess I know where I'm going for the year. The blonde announced. What are you talking about? Percy asked. You could handle yourself on your own now, right Percy? Naruto asked. You kidding? Of course. Why? He asked. I can go with you to your house. Naruto offered Annabeth. Annabeth and Percy gave odd looks at Naruto. Naruto got flustered and looked away. I mean, I can follow you there and stay at a hotel or something. What good are these millions of dollars I have sealed here if I don't use them? Naruto said while scratching his head. $1 million. Annabeth. And Percy exclaimed. Where'd you get that kind of money? Annabeth asked. Oh, didn't I tell you guys? Naruto scratched the back of his head. I won a lot of money back at the Lotus Hotel, and I managed to swipe Grover and Percy's cards. How did you manage that? Plus you're underaged. It was Percy's turn to ask. With a little luck and the Henge no Jutsu. Naruto explained nonchalantly. And you swiped my and Grover's cars? Percy asked again. Pretty easy really. Super awesome ninja, remember? Naruto reminded the two. Annabeth punched him in the arm again. Hey. Naruto was about to protest but Annabeth kissed the older blonde on the cheek. Anyway, that's so sweet of you Naruto. Percy had a thumb up. Yeah, I'm enough old to handle myself here. You can go and keep wise girl out of trouble. We'll see. In that case, don't do anything stupid while I'm gone. Naruto reminded. How can I? You're taking all the stupid with you. Percy joked. But aren't you the one with all the stupid? Naruto teased. I can't agree with you more. Annabeth said. Shut up Blondie. Percy said. All three of them laughed at that. When we get back next summer, Annabeth started. We'll hunt down Luke, we'll ask for a quest, but if we don't get approval, we'll sneak off and do it anyway. Agreed. Sounds like a plan worthy of Athena. Percy said while Naruto nodded. Take care, seaweed brain. Keep your eyes open. She said offering a hand to the son of Poseidon. The two shook on it. Annabeth turned to the blonde shinobi. And Naruto. Iris message me when you get to my house. I'll meet you there. Got it. Naruto grinned and gave her a thumb up. Naruto and Percy watched her walk up the hill and join her family. She gave her father an awkward hug and looked back at the valley one last time. She touched Thalia's pine tree, then allowed herself to be led over the crest and into the mortal world. I guess I better fill up my form and get packin', Naruto voiced his thoughts. Take care of Annabeth, okay Naruto. Percy said. I got it covered, Dateba yo. Naruto replied. Give this card to your mom. Just in case you guys need it to buy a luxury apartment or something. You can destroy it if you want or don't need it. I don't know how to thank you, man. Just hug Aunt Sally for me, k? That I can do. The two bumped fists and went their separate ways. That's it for part 5. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.